Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Broman Class right here giving you part 2 of 3 in our analysis of New Jack City, the tension between Pan-Africanism and Eurocentric ideals. Now, in our previous part, we were talking about Nino Brown and how he represents the negative half of reality, or the negative half of the black youth. Now we're going to focus on Scotty Appleton and his side of the story. Scotty Appleton, as you know, he's a cop. He's a New Jack cop taking out a New Jack gangster, which is Nino Brown. How do these two connect? Well, here's a bit of a spoiler. You find out later in the film, nearing the end, that Nino Brown actually killed Scotty Appleton's mother, who was a teacher. Now, how does this tie in with Scotty Appleton's, contempt for Nino Brown? See, look, not only he did not know who Nino Brown was, all he knew that Nino Brown was like this disease that was plaguing his community, killing his people, and even murdered people that did not do a damn thing, but except try to produce a positive image, and not an image, but a positive outlook for the black youth. Yes, Scotty Appleton, despite him being a cop, despite his vulgar, coarse language, you know what he represents? He represents the positive half of reality. Despite the gritty nature of New Jack City, despite how the way it may go down with language that may seem like, God damn, even had like a sex scene inside there, but nothing raw like porn. But Scotty Appleton, like I said before, represents the positive half of the black youth, positive half of reality, and what will happen even if you're in the same situation. Two different people will have two different perspectives. See, look, Scotty Appleton grew up in the same neighborhood, the same walks of life as Nino Brown. But what sets him apart from Nino Brown is the fact that, one, he has honor. Two, he may be hard to work with, but he's a good guy. Three, he loves justice, and he understands what is really going on with his people. Four, he just doesn't take any shit. I know, pretty vulgar, but let me just put it down on you. Scotty Appleton, if you really know him, he first met up with this stick-up kid named Pookie. Pookie was living a life of crime, like Nino Brown. I don't think he killed anybody, because what we're doing was the pretext of like 1986 or 3, at the height of the crack epidemic. Pookie almost tried to stick up Scotty Appleton, who is an undercover cop. Spoiler alert. Because this is going to be a very heavy spoiler joint. I should have mentioned that in the beginning. But with that comes into contact, nearing the end of the chase scene, Scotty Appleton shoots Pookie at the back of his foot, causing him to trip. And once you get shot right back there, that's just it. That part of your foot, you're just gonna limp. Then Pookie, after that, just turns into a life of drugs, and he becomes a basehead. But Scotty Appleton is still trying to clean the streets up, but he's doing it under the disguise of the law. When I mean disguise, I mean really, if in essence, Scotty Appleton actually represents Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanist ideals, or Afrocentric survival. Let me tell you why he represents that. Because one, he actually respects his community. He loves his community. And in one scene where he has to work with Nick Peredio, who is a white cop. And now the reason why I want to announce he's a white cop, because that's what he is. He's a white cop. And there was this one scene in New Jack City where Nick Peredio says, yeah, 1,700 hours. The criminals are armed with consumables, and the natives are restless. And Scotty Appleton says this, and I quote, "Yo, shut the fuck up, man. 10 years as a low-life murderous bum. Neil Brown out here trying to purchase the country, man. Man, I ain't going for this Robin Hood bullshit." Now, that line will make you indicate that he hates Nino Brown, or he has contempt, or even a hint of jealousy of him. But if you really know what Nino Brown does and do, and if you watch the first part, you understand why he hates Nino Brown, and why he's somewhat like the antithesis to Nino Brown. Scotty Appleton actually carries around an Africa medallion. Has dreadlocks. Well, even though sometimes dreadlocks doesn't symbolize you're a part of the Rastafari movement, it's just like a stereotype. But he follows a commandment that he wants to protect his people. He respects the elders. He respects what is right and what is wrong. He even condemned Nino Brown on the fact that he tried to use a young black girl who saw her father get shot up at a wedding. That would scar her. Try to use her as a shield. And then after a while, after all that was done, the girl is safe. Don't worry. But what happened afterwards was that he was trying to shoot Nino Brown, but he didn't. Because he was busy trying to shoot at some Italian mobsters. You obviously know the connection, with all that stuff. Especially with Gary Webb. Then, to make matters even funnier, with all this was going on, he actually had an associate who was talking to him, and she said onto him trying to get Nino Brown in the slammer, or slang for under jail. But he said something that solidifies his point of view, and that's this. He says, "I hope you know that son of a bitch tried to use that girl as a bulletproof vest." And Stone tried to tell him, like, hey, watch your language, alright? Because Stone was actually his superior. And, Scotty Appleton was known for being reckless and had a lot of suspensions. But he knew the streets really well. Then Scotty Appleton, he's not a bad guy, but, he was street smart. He understood the streets. But he didn't choose to go a life of crime. He instead chose the right path and chose to go down the right road. Even though he looked like he was the type of guy that would be corrupted by the vices that would come with and from the drugs and all that stuff, and how the way that Nino Brown was consumed by it, he wasn't, because he stood by his morals. Scotty Appleton, like I said before, represents Pan-Africanism. He represents the kid that lived off the streets, but chose a different path, a more righteous, possibly even a greater path than Nino Brown. He even respects his elders, hence why he respects an old man. He said, "Yo, watch your pops." And I understand that's an informal way and a disrespectful way to say, "Hey, look." And I understood that he pulled the gun on the old man's head and said, "Hey, don't even try it, old man, don't even think about it." He was protecting the old man for his own good, because the old man could have got killed that day. But he wanted to take Nino Brown down, and there was a strategic reason why. And like I said before, there was a conversation between him and Nino Brown when he was known as Mr. Washington. How very fitting. A slave master. Yeah, a slave goes by the name of a slave master. Yeah. But then again, Nino Brown actually admits to the killer, actually admits to the child that he killed his mother because he was high. Because he wanted to prove himself to the wrong crowd. He said, "I was part of this gang called the LA Boys." He said, "The exact, you know what I'm talking about." He said, the leader of this group, Jughead, he said, "To prove my loyalty, I have to stuff somebody out." Like that. I said, what? The enemy it was? He said, no. That's too easy. It's got to be an ordinary monk. So then, I went to like 101st, and I grabbed a big bat of that red devil angel dust. Man, I got so zooted in. I walked up on this lady. She looked like to be some kind of school teacher or something. Man, I was so fucking crazy, man. I didn't even care. I stepped to her. This was in the movie. I didn't see the body drop. I just ran. He said, and then hearing the fact that his mother's killer was right there, right in front of him, just shook him off. And he said, it wasn't exactly like revenge, right? It wasn't personal. He said, my brother, it's always business, never personal. Then, fast forward to the ending of the movie, which is the strongest point I'm going to pull out when it comes right down to New Jack City actually being about Eurocentric ideals versus Afrocentric survival. Scotty Appleton and Nino Brown were fighting. First it was a gunfight, then it became to an actual fist fight. And you know, with fists and with men, it comes right down to a clashing of ideals. That to me was like the physical embodiment or the literal interpretation of ideology. Then here's the strongest proof to me. And this is what Scotty Appleton said upon Nino Brown. And he had the audacity to wear this. He said onto Nino Brown, how you wear this and you selling poison to our people? You ain't shit. And what did Nino Brown have? An African medallion. See, the African medallion represents the motherland. And what does the motherland represent? The people of Africa. The people of dark skin. Some of you may say that's not entirely true. But if you really get down to the nitty gritty, you realize that it was actually two black men fighting. One of them chose more of the American way, while the other one chose a more, even though it looked like the American way, but a more Pan-Africanist way. Then, to have Scotty Appleton say that was the ultimate seal the deal. How you wear that and you selling poison to our people. That just basically said that Scotty Appleton had enough of Nino Brown. He wanted him dead. But he didn't kill him. He has sense from other people, even from somebody he just met and he trusts. He said, white cop, Nick Ferreiro said this, don't throw your life away on a piece of shit. But before that, let go of the gun, but cracked him. And he said, I'll be behind the week. Talking about Nino Brown. You were dead, man. I'm just like, man, please, send that fucker to jail. Because justice wasn't meant to be served. And the conclusion is going to happen in the third part. And how everything ties together in a whole. And with that, YouTube, this is Broman Clash saying, hope you have a great night, and y'all agree.